Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and fall is in the air. The way I know that is because Voyse buys everything that is pumpkin and brings it home now. And all her friends are making everything in pumpkin.
It's so good. I'm so excited about all the pumpkin stuff. You only get it during this season. Any other time of the year is just weird.
The throw blankets are being put out now. The candles are being lit. It's a whole fall vibe thing, and I know fall comes around when Voyse starts doing those things.
I hope that anybody that actually looks at our set can smell the pumpkin coming from it.
Just imagine the rest of the house. This is exactly what this looks like.
Pumpkin spice, cinnamon flavored apples. Oh, so delicious.
As you can tell, joining me as always is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all of our listeners. So I told you I would have a riddle for you every single time, and I am holding true to my promise. I have a body, arms, legs, and a head, but I'm heartless and have no guts. What am I?
Me when it comes to roller coasters. Can't do them now. Used to do them all the time when I first met you when we were younger. I was down. Now, oh boy, I get terrified.
You were terrified then too. It's okay. We all get afraid of roller coasters, especially when you start hearing those horrifying stories. Ooh. Now the answer to this riddle is a skeleton.
Makes sense.
But I guess it's essentially you on a roller coaster.
I hate them so much now. Well, for new listeners out there, I will give you a quick rundown of what we do here on this channel. Voyse scours Reddit for stories she finds interesting, funny, and dramatic, and we give our viewpoints on them. And we look forward to hearing yours as well, even if they don't align with ours.
Yeah. So, before we go ahead and hop into these stories, I would just like to remind all of our listeners, it's Hydration Wednesday. So don't forget to go ahead and drink your water, stay hydrated, and if it's starting to get cold, don't forget to put on a jacket.
Agreed. Voyse wears like 2 of them now.
I like my jackets. Well, now that we've got a little bit of TLC for our own bodies out of the way, why don't we go ahead and delve into these stories? For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story, am I the a-hole for thinking my girlfriend is manipulating me into proposing? My 27 male girlfriend, 23 female, and I have been together for 2 years. I moved into her apartment almost a year ago, and things have been going well, until we had an argument last week about the next steps. It's my first time moving out of my parents' house, so everything is still a learned thing for me. About a month into our relationship, we were drinking, and I said, I want to marry you right now. Then after that, it was something we always wanted with each other. Our lease ends in a few months, and we've been together for over 2 years now. So recently, she's been asking me things like, what's your timeline? Where do you see this going? When I say what I want, she gets mad that I don't know when. I don't have the exact date I plan on everything. My job has been cutting my hours. I have to start putting bills in my own name. Yes, over the past year, I may have done things that would hint for a proposal soon. I did ask her what ring shape she likes. We have talked in detail about our wedding and children. I said to her that I've been thinking about coming home to a little one the other month. It is what I want. She was upfront from the beginning that she was looking to date, to marry, and have a family. I wasn't sure until I was sure. I never really had a timeline and never thought about it until I met her. But all of what we were talking about was in the future sense. As I don't have a specific timeline, I'm just taking things one day at a time. She tells me I'm saying things that prove I have a timeline. I didn't think she would be thinking I was proposing as I said it. I just wanted it to be special when I propose. A surprise. I was just looking into rings. Things take time, but she didn't care about the price of the ring. I even sent a text of a resort package with the split cost we'd have to pay. I was trying to push it, and she said, yeah, I'm down. I guess she didn't take the hint, but she assumed just because I didn't put a down payment, I didn't have a plan. And I wasn't serious about it. Things just got tight money-wise. But it all comes off as manipulation. She said I've been leading her on for 2 years, but I really did want everything I was talking to her about. I just have issues getting things I want. And I didn't realize how much growing up I had to do, which she also didn't like to hear, I guess. She thinks I was telling her what she wants to hear because I really didn't have a solid plan. But it's normal for couples to discuss the future without it being labeled as a deadline. Isn't it unreasonable to expect so much after just a little over 2 years? Am I the a-hole?
Oh my Lanta. Carrots we dangle. Look, we're all allowed to have our timelines and how we'd like life to happen. Especially when you do get in relationships, that is an important thing to talk about. I think he said that she was 21, 22 when she got into the relationship with him.
Correct.
And he was 24, somewhere in there. Obviously, communication isn't super great for a lot of people at that age. But there's a couple things that are big red flags here for me. When they do get into the relationship, he said she is very upfront and forward with what she wants out of this. She wants a marriage and kids. And then I think his answer was yes, right? I think that's really all he gave.
Yeah.
While that might not have been a timeline, you still gave the expectation that that is something that you are both getting into this relationship for.
And that it will happen sooner, not later.
He says a month after they get in a relationship, they're drinking, and he's telling her he loves her.
I want to get married to you right now.
Yep. From that point on, you have started that ball rolling. Because no matter who you are on that side of the fence, especially when you are in a relationship that says this is what we want out of that relationship, of course people are going to start thinking, okay, well, when is that going to happen? The next red flag. You're talking about ring shapes with this young lady? Well, what would that mean to anyone when you start talking about that?
This is going to happen soon.
Why would you do that unless you were trying to elicit or manipulate an emotion out of someone? Unless you truly had a piece of paper where you were keeping these things down for when you wanted to pop the question. But it's odd that you would pop that without having a timeline in your head. Unless, again, we're trying to elicit or manipulate emotions to get what we want out of someone. There's something playing in there. I hope it's not that. Maybe I'm overreaching with that line of thought. But it is interesting that you would do that without having a timeline. Because I'll speak for a lot of us that have had to go around the finding the finger size.
I didn't even know.
You got to do a lot of digging, a lot of asking. I'm probably like a lot of people. I knew nothing about ring sizes when I proposed to you. So I had to go to the dealer and I had to figure out how to figure out what a proper ring size was. I knew you had rings prior to me, all your jewelry and things like that. But back in my mind, I'm going, do those rings fit anymore? Like what? I don't know how any of those things work. So
can I just take a picture of her hand and send it?
My brother went through the same process, and it was funny because I had went through this so long ago. His question was, how do I figure out her finger size? They give you that. Now they give you the little tape you can put around. But, doing those things will start having you wonder, well, I'm guessing the question is going to be popped soon. Obviously, the time is getting closer. That's not out of right field. And then the next red flag. You tell her a month ago that you're looking forward to coming home to a little one. Guy, you have packaged this whole life with a nice bow on top. And now you're, I guess, reluctant to give it to her?
Because he hasn't done enough growing up.
See, that's a whole other issue. There's things that he said where I understand times are tough. The economy, I don't know where they live, starting a family, making a home for your guys' selves. It's scary because a lot of life can be unknown and very uncertain. But if you're always going to play on that side of the fence, nothing will ever be done in your life. There will never be a good or right time for anything. That's the one thing life has taught me is there's plans and then there's actions. When you talk about plans and you don't enact them, all you're doing is dangling carrots. Now, if you want to be very honest with her about your fears and they are very justified, not enough money, all of those things, you can have that conversation with her. And when you do, you need to understand that at that point, you have to stop dangling the carrots. Stop talking about babies, marriage, rings, because it almost comes off as you just being manipulative to keep her around. If you're feeling forced into the relationship and it going too fast, then that's a situation you need to start thinking about. If it is going too fast, maybe it's not a relationship you want to be in. If this isn't something you're ready for because you sound like you just got out of the house at 26, and I'm not shaming anyone for that, but it does sound like you are on not such secure grounds as far as your employment status is concerned.
And then on top of that, maybe that they're living a more slow-paced life than what OP's girlfriend currently wants to essentially trajectory their lives into.
It's the classic, you're not on the same phase of life. While you guys may be similar in age, I think there's only a 4-year gap. She's ready for things that you're not. And that is still okay. Now, if you both can't agree that that's where you both are at, then that's when the relationship needs to dissolve. I think forcing each other into circumstances that you don't want to be in or that you're not ready for is detrimental. In my opinion, OP, you are definitely an a-hole.
So our consensus on Reddit is the OP is the a-hole. Many Redditors were saying that OP is essentially stringing their girlfriend around. Mind you, in the comment section, OP actually got very defensive regarding that and was trying to continuously flip this on the girlfriend. But I digress. In the end, OP's girlfriend, based on just OP's words, was very straightforward when they came with what they wanted from the onset. But instead, it feels like OP has been breadcrumbing all of his girlfriend's desires by bringing up proposing to her drunkenly, talking about ring sizes, talking about children, and even sharing resort packages of what is apparently going to be a honeymoon that they could potentially split.
You know, I wonder if he was going about those scenarios because he was trying to quell the storm. So she would bring it up and he'd go, oh yeah, of course I was thinking about this. And then she would stop talking about it because she thinks he's thinking about it. Does that make sense?
Until she started asking when.
Yeah.
When are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? Because now you're holding somebody's feet to the fire. And then that's when I feel arguments probably started. At
that moment, every time those things came up, that's when he should have had real and concise conversations about how he's feeling it's going too quickly. Then you're not in the wrong, because at that point, if she keeps pushing and you've already let it be known that, hey, you're just not ready for these type of commitments in your life, then I can understand and be behind you as far as someone forcing you into circumstances you're not ready for. That I'll never agree with. But you didn't. You kept abating her wants. Even if she was bringing those up constantly, you kept reaffirming her to continue this.
Now, what I find interesting about all of this is we actually get to go ahead and see this from the girlfriend's perspective, because she posted on another forum on Am I Overreacting, and actually shared some text messages.
Well, lick my face and call me a Tootsie Roll.
So let's go on to the girlfriend's perspective. Am I overreacting? My boyfriend's explanation on why we aren't engaged. He says I don't understand, but it makes no sense to me. My boyfriend and I are in our mid-20s. He's been hinting at a proposal for a year now. He told me everything from asking the ring shape to our children we are going to have. He told me he wanted to marry me a month in. I told him from the start I was dating to marry. He moved into my apartment over a year ago. 2 years pass from the beginning, and I start to ask him, where are we going? He is very vague. I had to ask him what his timeline was because he said he never had one. So then he finally comes up with one months ago. He said we will be married by 2025. So now time has passed, and now I don't know what's going on. He says things like, I'm working on it, okay? Or says, I don't know what to tell you. Sorry, I'm not moving fast enough for you. So the convo gets flipped on me. And I leave it feeling confused, like we didn't just talk about our wedding a week before I brought it up, the steps on how we can get there. He said he has issues going after what he wants. Does this mean he doesn't want to marry me? I'm so confused because I thought we were on the same page until I start trying to plan and he just gets defensive. I ended it with him last week. I explained how I felt led on, and he gets mad at me for trying to assume his thoughts. And this is his explanation. It makes no sense, and he gets mad at me for not understanding his side of things. Can anybody help me make sense of this? Now let me go ahead and actually read to you the text messages that the girlfriend shared in this regard. The boyfriend says, I want things. I don't go after them. I get upset. I don't know why. It's just how my whole life has been. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't understand the issue. The girlfriend says, I don't either. The boyfriend says, I have repeatedly explained this to you for days. The girlfriend says, all right. The boyfriend says, you seem to want me to say something else, but that's everything there is to it. I've told you everything. I'm not ready to settle down, like in a sense of starting a life with you. I just still have some growing up to do, and I didn't realize that. I'm so frustrated. You don't seem to understand me and my mind at all, and it hurts because I thought you truly understood me and how I am and my issues with things. The girlfriend says, but I feel like instead of explaining those issues and how we can work past them with steps, you just made it seem like you had it all under control. Instead of saying, hey babe, I'm looking into doing this for us. I'm getting overwhelmed. What do you think? You were just like, marriage, 2025, trying for a baby in a year. The boyfriend says, I get these ideas and things I really, really want so badly, but then I don't make it happen and feel really upset about it. I never lie about what I want. I've never done that in my life, and I sure as hell never did it with you. I know what I want. I just can't fulfill it. And I don't know why I'm like this, but it's caused me to miss a lot of opportunities and things I wanted. And that was the end of all the text messages.
Well, it sounds like the girlfriend went with, in my opinion, was probably the best option. Look, it sounds like the boyfriend needs to go get into counseling. He's very aware of what's going on, that he's letting, I'm not sure if it's fear guide him in not making the decisions he needs to make in his life or what we're actually dealing with. One scenario doesn't give me enough about the person, but he does highlight that, there are things he wants, he just doesn't follow through with them. At the end of the day, regardless of the reasonings, that's what's happening. The girlfriend outlines where she's like, look, I hear your problems, but we never actually talk about how we move through them in a positive and healthy way. It sounds like she's up on her stuff. That's how you're supposed to do it. We all have things we have to work through, but just saying it isn't enough. We have to start enacting plans, moving in a upward trajectory. And sometimes upward can just be neutral, but it sounds like he's okay with being still. And that's something that I think a lot of us can't tolerate. Time is precious. And I'm not saying it's okay to get into a relationship and guilt someone into having kids and getting married before they're ready. But what I am saying is if you're getting into a relationship where those things are already outlined and you're willing to play the part as far as bringing up things like ring size and all these other things he was doing, be prepared for the outcome of that. She sounds like she's ready to roll to the next step. And I didn't realize that he had moved in with her. She's 21 and has her own apartment. Obviously, he's getting a later start. I'm not sure why that is, but a lot of people are in that scenario. A lot of people have had to live with their parents a lot longer than they would have wanted to. And again, I'm not shaming anyone for that. I think it's a great thing if your family can give you a place to grow and still, save up and, for everyone's different. But he says he has a lot of growing up to do. And I agree with you. You do. But that doesn't mean for your girlfriend or your now ex-girlfriend that she has to wait on something that she's ready for today. It's time for you both to go find other things. She's ready to go find a partner that wants those same things that she wants. And for you, this might be a good time to hit the reset button. Start figuring out how it is that you can get the things that you do want in life. It's good that you know those things, but now it's time to work towards getting them. She wanted advice that I don't think really there is much advice. You ended up doing what I think is the best course of action here. Moving on with your life and going forward, keep still having those same type of firm communication lines. I wouldn't want my life wasted.
I think that's how a lot of other Redditors, when it came to the girlfriend, was essentially explaining it to her. They said, look, I've been in relationships where my partner had strung me along for 10 plus years. Don't allow your life to be put on stop. And a lot of those individuals, it was almost as if they were looking for the next best thing. And that's why they weren't locking down into a commitment. Don't devalue what you would like in a relationship just because someone can't figure it out themselves. Yeah,
we didn't have expectations like that, but I knew when I found you that you were the woman I was going to marry. Like that was easy for me, but
I think it's the same for me. I knew that you were the one that I was going to enjoy my life with, and I was just going to let whatever was out there just guide us in the right direction.
But I also didn't string you along or put like weird things.
See, that's where, for me, I guess you can say put a lot of onus on the boyfriend here. You, in our first years together, never brought up marriage.
No.
We did bring up kids, and I find it funny because of how everything hit before then. I was very hesitant on thinking about future children until I was more comfortable with where we were in life. And then it was more of an excitement of the possibility. And then, of course, the questioning if we could even have it, to now the excitement of it happening. It has been an absolute roller coaster. But the one thing that you've never done is you've never dangled it in front of me. I never knew that you were looking at ring sizes for me. You never told me what you thought your vision of proposing to me was. I never even had that kind of vision in mind myself. I was just going to be excited with whatever was going to happen. I think when you leave some things to mystery, it's so much more pleasant to have that surprise come your way. But that's only if you trust your partner enough. For me, between both of these sides here, it doesn't feel like there's enough trust between them. She's constantly asking for a timeline. She'd like to have a plan. That's probably who she is as a person. She's a planner. And then the boyfriend here, he doesn't. He wants to let things ride. But if you can't trust your partner to have those kind of, I guess you could say, expectations on a relationship, because there are tons of relationships that do not get married.
Yeah.
That they do potentially have kids, or that they're fine with the if it happens, if it doesn't sort of feeling on having kids. But when you're bringing it up and then that person isn't making steps towards that action, it makes it feel as if you can't trust them anymore. And once you lose that trust so fundamentally, when it comes to something that was explicitly told from one side, I just see everything just crumbling down. And I also have to side with you. In this case, she probably made the best decision, was to go ahead and just stop the relationship, because the relationship was truly only one-sided.
From what they wanted. That's the
Exactly.
problem, though. He went into that relationship knowing her expectations of it, and he wasn't ready to follow in lockstep. I'm sorry that it happened for him. I hope he goes and gets the help so that way he can better his life, because it sounds like it really is a deterrent to a lot of his life.
A block,
Yeah,
right?
and
On their own life.
The good thing is you can work through those things. Just get the help.
I agree. Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about an adopted person. Am I the a-hole for not disclosing the fact I'm adopted to my fiance's family? I, 27 male, was adopted as an infant. I always knew. My parents never hid this from me or made it something shameful, but I never liked to talk about it with others. It normally opens up a lot of questions about my biological, or real, as some would call them, parents. Or some people start talking about my parents like they're not really my parents. I had it happen when I was a lot younger and started school and told people my special story. So after we moved when I was 8, I stopped talking about it and acted to others like my parents are my bio parents. I told my fiancé when we started dating, but apart from her and some very close friends, I never talk about it with people. To me, it's not something that anyone else needs to know. This includes my fiancé's family. My adopted status was revealed to my fiancé's family during a recent visit of theirs. I got a knock on the door from a PI who informed me my biological parents were interested in contact with me, and they overheard. They had a lot of questions, but primarily they were angry at me for 2 reasons. Firstly, and most importantly for this post, because I didn't tell them, they did not like being kept in the dark and did not like my fiance's response that it wasn't any of their business. Secondly, because I expressed to the PI I was not interested in any contact with them and asked him to pass this on to my biological parents. My fiance's family had the very reaction I try to avoid from people, and they asked how I could turn down the chance to know my real family. But the primary criticism is that I did not tell them and let them find out that way. They said they could have had grandkids affected by this, and I wouldn't tell them. My fiancé reminded them it was none of their business, and she had them leave early when they refused to let the topic go. But her parents are still pissed at me. Am I the a-hole?
I think there's a problem with my cup because it's all out of fucks to give.
In my mind, I was like, we didn't make a tea though.
Yeah, we got the water, but that's just how I feel about this story. Your fiance, good for her for having your back on this. It is no one else's business what the dynamics are in your family, period. Unless you're willing to give it to them, it's not something they're owed. Start creating healthy boundaries right now, OP. This is perfect. Do not give in to that childish behavior. It is quite interesting that they are making it about themselves, though, because in a sense, that's what they've done. Like, how could you possibly not want your biological parents in your life? I think they're pushing more of their belief systems onto them because they want to make sure that you uphold respect and loyalty, in a sense, to family, right? Because they don't want to be told no by you. They want to make sure that they can tell you what to do. I've seen plenty of families do that to each other. They only care how you respect your parents because it's how you'll respect them.
That's very true.
I would just say if the subject comes up anymore, handle it the same way you did here. This is a good lesson to learn right now because it sounds like you guys are about to start the next leg of your life. And it's good for you that you made the decision right then and there. Just because your biological parents want to come back into the picture does not mean you have to allow them back in. Nor do you owe anyone an explanation as to why you don't want to. See, that's another thing that comes back into here is like the parents are, why wouldn't you want them to come back? Why does that concern you?
They're your real family.
Keep creating your healthy boundaries. You're not the a-hole.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. The short and the long of it from Redditors was, it's no one's business but OP's, and they already told their partner, which is all that they needed to do. In fact, many Redditors said, kudos to your fiancé. They were actually able to keep the confidences of something that was so private. Because for a lot of individuals, sometimes family gets a little too close and those confidences can get a little lax. So your partner will tell you something and then you'll inadvertently turn around and tell parents or a close sibling. But it's nice to know that she was able to keep that private. And in a way, it sort of reinforced the trust between the two of them.
She's a good partner.
Now, I find it very interesting because I looked over OP's comments, and one of the main takeaways regarding this was OP's parents, not biological parents, their parents, reached out to the bio parents years and years and years ago when they were but an infant, very young, because they wanted to know medically, historically, what kind of potential problems that they might have. Is there any heart, effects? Do you guys have any kind of underlying medical issues that we would need to know? They reached out to these biological parents multiple times through the adoption agency, and those same parents refused to answer back.
But now they want something to do with their kid after he's grown up and moved on with life.
Exactly. And I find it telling because OP was aware of this, that the parents had reached out when they turned into adulthood. And I think it sort of stemmed on them that if their biological parents didn't even care enough to at least provide medical history of what they knew, then they clearly didn't care at all. And they just sort of let it go at that point. Now, OP said when the PI came to the door, they actually provided a letter from the parents to OP. And many Redditors were a bit curious about what the contents of that letter was. Our OP said, what I read did not paint a great picture overall and made me feel like I would be treated like a possession. Not to mention, it made me realize they were still the people who refused to share medical history when my parents asked, so they could know this stuff when I was being adopted. So I didn't want to read more or care what else they had to say. And they literally gave the letter right back to the PI. I understand individuals have so many reasons to go ahead and have to give their child up for adoption. It is not the easiest choice for so many individuals out there who are limited in what they can do for their children. I would think that if you truly cared for your child, something as simple as a medical history is the least that you can do. It really doesn't take very much time. All it would take would be that simple letter that our OP got. And if our OP read it and they felt as if they were a possession rather than a person that they were trying to get in contact with to know, that is also very telling of the people that, you're lucky to have the parents that you do have. These biological people don't need to be in your life.
I absolutely agree. The good thing for our OP is it sounds like he has an awesome partner.
And it sounds like he's got a lot of love from his parents.
Oh, definitely.
Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about child support. Am I the a-hole for refusing to cancel child support? Throwaway account. I, 34 male, have been taking care of my sister's 32 female daughter for around 6 years. This all started when my sister got arrested for felony theft and drug charges. She's been a longtime addict, poor mother, and family manipulator. No one else in my family stepped up, so I offered to take my niece in while my sister did drug treatment to avoid jail. From the beginning, my niece, then around 10, didn't want anything to do with her mom. I thought that was odd, but over the first few months I had her, my niece opened up about her mom having treated her very poorly. I sought a guardianship for my niece and told my sister that I would not willingly send my niece back to her unless my sister got off the drugs and sorted her life out. My sister initiated a legal fight with me to terminate the guardianship. I grew to love this kid like my own, and I didn't want to send her back to a bad environment. It cost me 6 figures over the course of a year and a half in legal fees. I won. I managed to marshal substantial evidence of my sister's ongoing substance abuse, and the court relied upon the report of a court-appointed guardian ad litem who reported favorably about my niece in my care and about my niece's negative view of her mother. At some point in the legal process, as I was shelling out 5-figure monthly legal bills, I learned that, as my niece's guardian, I was entitled to child support. So I filed the forms to seek it, and won it. The state oversees the support award, and is apparently pretty thorough in seeking it, garnishing paychecks and bank accounts. Now, years on, I am starting to get pressure from other family to forgive the child support. I have family reaching out to me saying my sister is doing better and just can't get ahead having to give up portions of her paycheck every month. With back amounts, it's like $30,000 in back support that I am owed. I don't need it, really, if I'm being honest. I make a good living, better than anyone else in my family has done. In all likelihood, sister's debt will never be paid in full, but I don't want to let it go. I've stated telling relatives, hey, that's great that you want to help sister. Why don't you pay for her $30,000 debt plus the present value of the award until the niece is 18, and then I'll forgive sister's obligation. Relatives have been huffy at that response. My sister initiated a fight with me knowing full well she was back on drugs and lied about it and got caught in open court. It was all a waste of a large amount of money in my prime years that I would have otherwise saved and set aside to retire on or pay for my niece's education. I'm still mad about it, and my sister can owe me it forever for all I care. Am I the a-hole?
Well, it sounds like we have an uncle that stepped up to the plate, or the rest of the family wasn't able to or didn't want to for the child in question. Good for you, OP. So all OP is asking for is if he's the a-hole for continuing to have the mother, the biological mother, still pay for child support for her child.
Correct.
No. Where would that be a problem? If those are your kids, you pay for them. That's as simple as it will ever get from me. If you've made that decision in your life and you have children, they're your responsibility. Although I do feel for the mother, at some point you have to take responsibility and accountability for the things and choices you make in life. I hope she gets the help that she needs. At some point she can turn it around. But as far as her daughter and that child support is concerned, I do not feel bad about that. So OP, no, you're not the a-hole. I'm probably in the same boat with you. You're probably never going to see the $30,000, but what you will see is your niece given the chance at a good life because you stepped up.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. For Redditors, they said that OP is entitled to that money as it's for the care of their niece, and it is the responsibility of biological parents to provide financially, if not living with that parent. Now, I will say, this is very difficult when I look at it, only because I can hear how much money our OP has shelled out to ensure that his niece stays safely under his roof.
I mean, he said 6 figures just to start the whole thing.
Can you imagine for me, whenever I think of that fight that this sister essentially put our OP through, that's money that could have been going to her child instead of whatever pride or whatever other BS she's stemming up in court. The only thing that I, as a parent, if I know that my child is in a good place and I am not, is just to be able to at least visit. But clearly our OP sister is not mentally in a good place if they keep going back to drugs, if they're fighting in court and essentially wasting money on both sides rather than it go to this little girl that could have a very good future. Now, it's nice to know that our OP doesn't need the money and he's not looking at it just to see a sort of paycheck through his niece. I mean, those would be my thoughts on the outside looking in when it comes to these kind of cases. Our OP has made it clear that they don't need this money for him or his niece to essentially survive off of.
Yeah.
This is only because, and truly, this is how I feel about all child support. That money is for your kid. Whether you're doing it to make sure that they get fed right then and there, or you're saving all the money to the side to make sure that their future is good when they're on their own 2 feet, that money is for that child. And if parents, anyone out there says that they're entitled to that child support and they can use it however they want, no, you can't. You use it for that kid first. For me, that is how I've always viewed child support. That is why it's called child support and it's not called for the parent. Now, I will say OP, mind you, they were very clear when it came to a lot of their stances. One of their stances that they don't know who the father is, and for all he cares, he doesn't. He thinks they're probably just some piece of trash person. And our OP has always been that father figure that his niece needs. And he kind of guards that jealously. He's like, I don't need another bad person in our lives trying to impede on the growth of what he sees as now his sort of child. Our OP says very specifically in this comment, she's a very normal, well-adjusted teenage girl, which is everything I hoped for. I never intended to have children. I didn't have a great childhood, and kids look to me like a lot of potential heartache. I just wanted to work in my field and afford a good life. But I've learned I was missing a lot. Having her future to look forward to and to be there for has made my life richer.
That is the impact of children, especially as you're growing up. If you never wanted them before, the second they pop into your life, whether it be through naturally or through like this, where he basically adopted his niece. Introspection will give you a lot of aha to your life. And not to say that even if you don't ever have a child, I'm not saying you're missing out on your life. That's not the argument I'm trying to have. What I am saying is it's impressive how the thing that you didn't want, when it shows up, can open your eyes to
a different facet in life.
Yeah, what you couldn't see. Yeah, it sounds like that's what's happened for our OP is, yeah, he's done a lot for his niece, but his niece just being in his life has done a lot for him as well. And I'm happy that she has a guardian like that.
I do as well. I think our OP is a gift, not just to society, but just to his niece, to be able to love her so much. He would make sure to use whatever means he can, legally means he can. I'm talking more financially, because a lot of financial duress can essentially crumble families and make it feel as if it's become more of a burden rather than a joy to have.
It's no longer a fight that you can fight.
I really hand it to OP. Your love for your niece, I know she'll probably feel that well into her adulthood, and it will shape who she is as a person. So it's great to know that she is a mentally well-adjusted, happy, normal teenage girl that's just being able to experience life the way that she should. Now let's go on to our very last story, and let's leave us off with something that's probably going to have you giggling a little. Today, I fucked up by shaving off my beard.
Oh no.
Last night, I made an impulsive decision to shave off my beard.
I know that feeling.
I have had the beard the majority of my adult life. The last time I shaved was 6 years ago. This was before I'd lost 70 kilograms, so I thought Let's see what I look like now. This morning, I got up and walked out to see my kids. I called that I had a surprise for them. My 3-year-old looked at me for a second and said, "What you did, Daddy?" And then promptly whimpered and started hiding from me behind his mom. Took a good 20 minutes to coax him out to come and see me up close. My 5-year-old wouldn't talk to me and kept hiding behind his arm when I got close. They are both now talking to me at least, though I'm not sure they are terribly impressed. I mean, it's nice to see I have somewhat of a jawline now, and it's passable, and I don't look awful compared to how much I hated not having the beard when I was at my biggest. But I think I'll go back to the beard. It does suit my face better. I look a bit too much like Uncle Fester or an English soccer hooligan for my liking. The too long don't read, shaved, and my kids who have never seen me without a beard freaked out.
Beards hide the mistake. Yeah, I've done that once. I was on a drunken night with my brother, and we had a bet. I don't remember what the bet was about, but I know
it was if something happened, you both had to shave the beard.
Yeah, and I committed to it because I'm a person of my word. I remember being drunk that night. I grabbed the electric clippers and I went one line up, gave myself the Wolverine. I remember it was in front of all of you, and the laughter.
It was so bad.
No one thought that was going to happen. But the thing is, when I say it, when I promise it, I do it. And then my brother didn't follow.
It was one of the crowning moments of, oh my God, what just happened? And then the next day you looked and you're like, I'm never going to shave this again.
Yeah, no, I don't like me without facial hair.
I find it absolutely hilarious because I've seen the videos of individuals who have shaved their facial hair and you see animals reacting and kids reacting, some kids crying. You can't do this to our little girl. It will traumatize her.
We'll have to do it at least once.
No, I find it hilarious because Redditors, they put up a Sphinx cat because it's essentially what it kind of looks like when individuals that you've seen them with facial hair when they finally do shave because you've never seen it and you just cannot imagine it.
That was my father. After he got out of the military, I think for the better part of almost 20 years, I did not see his face without a beard. And then one day he shaved it and I was like, let's glue that back on. Where'd the squirrel go that was resting on your face?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Facial hair is one of those weird things where once you have that vision of how somebody is, it's so hard to deviate away from it.
It's a whole different person. And then the whole weak jaw syndrome thing that goes around for people. And yeah, who knows? Maybe someday I'll shave mine off. But right now, I'm going to hold on to it.
I love you just the way you are.
Me too. What was that, our last story?
That was our last story.
Unbebeardable. It was a good one to end off on.
Good. Just a little reminder of the past, I mean, especially for us.
Good memories. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post on Mondays and Wednesdays. We have our Feel Good Fridays, of course, on Fridays. And then on our Patreon, we have our Damas After Dark episodes. And during the month of October, just a little reminder, we have our paranormal story time there. We would also love to thank all of our Teachreons for your support.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of y'all.
Mwah!
And as always, listeners, we look forward to hearing your opinions in the comments below. What did you think about the stories today?
I thought it was hilarious, especially that last one, because you did it. Except I didn't cry when you did it.
Yeah.
Although, no. I cried out in shock, but I didn't cry.
Everyone in the room, that was a ball of laughter for like 30 minutes.
The thing is, there was no way to fix it. You had shaved to the skin.
Yeah, right up the center. I told you, I wanted the Wolverine. If I was going out, I was going out in style. And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
Not gonna lie, I've been thinking about that cake in the fridge downstairs.
Oh, cake sounds good.
Homemade cake, let's go.